Just when America has reached a breaking point with division, visionary influencer Danni Benson's I'm Proud of You Sis Bro movement taps into the pulse and heartbeat of a culture radically torn. But this loving mom's voice of reason and calm has received national recognition.
How'd you balance having your children and always traveling with the Yankee organization?
When I became a dad, I said that I would always love like a mother.
I feel like I have to hide certain things or act a different way because I know some people or some kids feel like they have to.
As part of the Chapters Network, Benson brings a weekly show aired worldwide on YouTube and Facebook, and her message is creating positive change. That's Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danni Benson, host of I'm Proud of You Sis. Happy Hump Day. I hope everyone is having a great week. I'm having a great week. My babies, for the first time, didn't wear a mask at school today. They were looking forward to this since the news broke out last week. So it was weird because one of them was still scared and she still went to wear her mask because she had so much anxiety to take this mask off. And then my other twin, was like, hey, I'm taking the mask off. So I have Judy Foster here. I want to bring her flowers. She is a social worker. She also works with people who have severe mental illness. Also, she has 5 years experience in hospice care. She's a licensed psychotherapist. And we are here to talk about just therapy, mental health, especially with our children, and starting them early because today was an anxious day for a lot of children, including like one of my daughters. So we as parents have to make sure to check in with our kids to make sure that they're okay, because for the last 2 years, especially where we're from in New York, we were told that we had to wear the mask in school. So today was like a very frightening day for a lot of kids. But I have Judy. I want to give her flowers. She's super amazing. She works with also with women who are in domestic violence area. She is all over the place when it comes to mental health and making sure that everyone's okay. So we're here to talk about why we feel that everyone who's walking on this planet should definitely go and sit and speak to a therapist and talk about their feelings. So Judy, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? I wanted to give you your flowers because we've been through so much, right? Yep. And I credit it to me, actually, going to therapy. Exactly. I don't know if you've ever been to therapy before, but I tell everybody, therapy is amazing. You just have to pick the right psychotherapist.
Right. And we're going to talk about that today. But thank you so much for my flowers. And thank you so much for letting me come on your show. You are amazing. This show is so amazing.
Thank you.
I don't know if
we were having a conversation. That's why this is important. It's so great that it's on the day that kids take their mask off, because what this country is forgetting is leaving behind like the mental health, right? Like everyone is like, okay, mask is off now, everything's back to normal, but it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Especially when you've ingrained, especially with children who are innocent, that if they take this mask off, they might catch a virus or something like that. Right?
This is the world that they are growing up in. We didn't grow up with this, but this is the world that children are growing up with now, with this virus and wearing masks and being scared and not knowing what's going to happen. I was going to say before, I don't know if you knew that my mother was a psychotherapist.
Really?
And so for me, growing up, my sister and I, we had the world of my mother was always talking to us about therapy. She was always telling us to talk about our feelings. We thought it was annoying at the time when we were kids, but it was great that she did that. And so I grew up like that, but most people didn't. Most people didn't grow up in a household where it's okay to talk about your feelings. And, their mother was a therapist. And my sister and I, when we had arguments, she would make us hug and talk to each other and get it all out and things like that. So it would be great if a lot of people had that growing up, because then it would become the norm when they became adults. And I think we were talking about before about Dr. Feelings and putting it in a way so that kids can understand it. And so they won't be afraid and they won't be confused. And then when they get older, it's just a part of their life.
You were so right, because I am actually writing this book called Dr. Feelings, and because I wanted parents to know how important it is to get your kids into therapy at a very early age.
Right.
Just as we are so excited to take them to their first dental appointment, the first primary care appointment, or even they break a leg and we're running to the emergency room. The reason I'm writing this book called Dr. Feelings is to let people know that kids do suffer from broken hearts, right?
Right.
And the same importance that we'll run for something that physically happens to them, we also have to put that same urgency and run when something mentally is happening to them.
Right. Right.
And we shouldn't tell kids, stop crying.
That's right.
Go upstairs. When you're not validating a child's feelings, this is the start of them shutting down and not talking about their feelings.
That's right.
Especially when it's a trauma and you're telling them not to talk about their feelings.
Right.
And we were talking about this because if each parent would take mental health as seriously as a child's physical health.
That's right.
There would be so many grown adults that's not carrying childhood traumas,
Mm-hmm.
or not carrying like emotional baggage from like 5, 6, all the way into adulthood, and not understanding why were they making the decisions they were making. But
Right.
it's linked to probably something that happened early in their life.
That's right. We treat diabetes, we treat high blood pressure, heart disease, other illnesses. But when it comes to mental health, it's like, don't talk about it. And it's just as important, if not more important, because without our mental health, we're not going to have our physical health. We won't have ourselves. So, and you made a good point about, when boys are raised, they are told, do not cry. It is looked at as a sign of weakness to cry as a little boy. Especially. And so they grow up especially thinking that therapy is a sign of weakness. Telling people how you feel, crying, is a sign of weakness. And it is not. It's actually the opposite. And so that's
and I want to stop that stigma.
Yep.
To stop telling boys, don't cry, don't talk about your feelings. And I had a conversation with one of my girlfriends. We always talk about, oh my God, the men, some men out here are just horrible. And I always tell her, but it's mostly the women that's raising these men.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So maybe we have to look at ourselves and find out, what are we doing that we're not preparing them to be in relationships with women. And the first thing we do is don't cry, don't talk about your feelings. And then when they're older, a woman is like, can you please tell me your feelings?
Right. And
you can't have it both ways, because if they're little and it's ingrained in them not to talk about their feelings, and they've been doing this since like 5, 6, years old,
right.
What makes you think as adults they're all of a sudden going to open up and talk about their feelings, or they're going to start crying?
Exactly. So there is a stigma, especially in the Black community, I think, regarding going to therapy. What will people think? Will people think I'm crazy? Sometimes people think that you have to have something major going on in order to go to therapy, and you don't. It could just be that you're going to unpack some things that have happened to you, some past childhood traumas, or you could just be going to see what comes up. It depends. But we have to stop the stigma around it, because, I think in the Black community, and just in a lot of communities, people don't want to air dirty laundry. They don't want people in their business. Everything should be kept within the family. And I think that it's important for people to know that what's said in therapy is kept confidential, unless they are expressing harm to themselves or others. What's said in therapy is confidential. And I think if people really understand that, it might make them feel a little bit more at ease with talking about things that have happened to them in life, especially childhood traumas, molestation, abuse, things that people are ashamed of, and that they can't really go to people for. That's what therapists are for.
And especially when you're a young child, when you're going through a trauma, you're blaming yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. You don't know any better.
You don't know any better. So you're a little child in an adult world and things are happening that you don't understand, and 9 times out of 10 your parents is not explaining it to you. So that's another trauma, because you're actually physically seeing all of this trauma, but you're trying to understand what it is, and now you end up carrying it with you. Because if your parent would say, you know what, this is a hard time that we're going through, let's go someplace where you could talk about your feelings.
Right.
Let's go someplace where it's safe to talk about your feelings. I tell my kids all the time, I'd rather you talk about your feelings to, your psychotherapist than even tell your friends. Because at least whatever feelings that you're sharing with your psychotherapist, it stays with your psychotherapist.
Right.
So it is a safe place to talk to somebody.
Safe space. Yep.
Without feeling like, if I share this, will someone else find out?
Right.
So just like I tell people, the way that adults are mirrored or come out the way that they are, we all say something happened in our childhood. Something happened in our childhood.
Always.
And sometimes it's like a blank, because sometimes we delete the file in our head.
Yes. Repressed memories, all of that.
And then but then you don't understand why you're making the choices that you're making.
Yes.
Like, it's subconscious. Like, there is a reason why you're making those choices.
Right.
But because something happened a long time ago that you suppressed, I tell people all the time, it's healthy to go get a mental, checkup. Just as it's healthy to go get a physical once a year, or go to your dentist twice a year, or go see your, gynecologist twice a year. You should also go speak to a therapist and just, check on your feelings.
That's right. Especially for kids, because when kids don't talk about things, and what's going to happen is it's going to end up coming out somehow anyway, whether it's through them being irritated about something, being angry, in school, it's going to come out. So if you don't get those feelings out someplace, it's going to come out someplace else. And it may not be in a positive way. And it may end up fighting at school or something. It's just going to come out in a negative way. And when we were talking about little boys being raised to not cry and be strong, Black women also have this stereotype of being the strong Black woman. I know you've heard of that. And
look, the fact that we always say we're strong doesn't allow people to come and help us.
Right.
Because they're like, why am I helping someone who always says they're strong? So what happens is, as Black women, we carry all this weight on us. And I don't understand it. Who are we trying to prove what to?
Exactly.
Like, it's okay not to be strong every single day. It doesn't make you a failure. If you some days you're going to be weak.
That's right.
It happens.
Right.
Right.
But it's a myth. It's a myth that Black women have been
strong. Or just like another myth, like Black women don't feel pain.
Yes.
So when they're in the hospital and they're asking for the oxycodone, and the doctor looks at them like, I thought you're a strong Black woman. They have this perception.
Right.
You're Superwoman. What do you mean you need pain meds?
I'm glad you brought that up, because, back in the days, they used to do experiments on Black women. Without anesthesia, they would experiment on us. And so I think that's where birthed this myth that Black people don't feel we're strong. They can handle it. And that is not true. We all need help.
We are as human as everyone else.
Yep.
Our circumstances is as human as everyone else. And just like someone else feels the pain, we as Black women, we feel the pain too.
That's right.
And I just think sometimes we say we're strong because sometimes we have to just psych ourselves out. Because when we're at our lowest point, we know that no one's going to come to save us. Yes. So we often have to say that we're strong and we could do this by ourselves. Right. But you know what? It's okay if somebody comes and helps.
Right. And I think we also feel like we have to be strong for our families. Like, especially if you're a parent, you have to be strong for your kids. You don't want them to see you going through certain emotions. You have to hold the family together. And so that puts a lot of pressure on Black women, especially, to hold up this front and, don't let anyone see you cry, and don't ask for help, because we want to show our kids to also be the same way. And so let's just tailor that a little bit. It's okay to be a strong person, but we can also show our kids that it's natural, it's normal, it's okay to not be okay at times.
And I think that's the reality. It's okay not to be okay, and it doesn't make you weak. It's not the end of the world, you know. But it's okay to express those feelings and say, you know what, you know, even to my kids, you know, it's you shouldn't lie to them because they're gonna think you're Superwoman all the time,
right?
So
and then
you
emulate it.
Yeah, so you gotta let them know, like, you know, some days I have good days, some days I have bad days.
Yes.
You know, yes, I'm your mom, but I'm not perfect either. Right. So you gotta like be vulnerable to the point where you give grace to yourself too as a woman.
Yep.
Because a woman is expected to multitask.
Yes.
Kids, career, going here, going to this tennis, swimming. It's like expected, and you feel like if you don't go through all of this stuff that women have to do to be successful, you feel like you're a failure if you can't juggle everything.
Exactly.
And I'm here to tell you that, you know, you're not a failure.
Right.
It's a lot on us.
It is.
And even mentally, it's a lot on us.
It is. And I think people need to know also they're not alone. Like just how we're talking about this, I hope there are people listening and say, oh my God, I feel the same way. Once people know they're not alone, it's so much easier to come out and admit things and to talk about things. Because a lot of times people think they're the only ones. And little do they know, it's everybody. We're all feeling, you know, weak at some points in our lives. It's natural. It's normal. We're human.
Yes. And that's why Judy and I want to emphasize the importance of starting, you know, therapy the earliest you can, because it actually is a safe place. You know, therapy sometimes was seen back in the day as like a quack doctor, someone who's going to give you medication, and all of a sudden you're going to be numb from your feelings. And you know, and especially like in the Black community, you know, your parents used to say, you know, just go to God, just go pray to God.
Yes.
But you know what I tell people, you know, when you have like heart issues, you can pray to God, you know what I mean, but you still need to go to cardiologist to deal with that heart issue, right? So because I go to a therapist and talk about my feelings doesn't mean that I don't go to God also. But you know what God says, you know, I help those who help themselves, right?
Yes.
So we have to take the initiative to deal with our pain and not blame everybody else for it.
Yep.
Right? Because that's another thing we do. We we project.
Yes.
When we have mental health issues, because we don't want to admit to ourselves that we have to go to someone and talk.
Exactly. Religion is a really big one. It's a big one because I don't underestimate the power of prayer, but sometimes we need some outside help as well. And because you know, the Black community is rooted in the church from back in slavery times, where all we had was the church to go to, and we trusted in God, and that cycle continues generation to generation. They think that if you go outside of the church to talk about your feelings, it means you don't believe in God as much, or you're not putting all your faith in God, and you shouldn't be doing that. And that, you know, I hope that there are people out there that know you can do both. We're not saying don't, you know, stay in the church or be loyal to your church, but you can also go to therapy as well.
Yes, and I think God would welcome that.
Yes.
Do you know, because your mental health is so important, because your mental health is what shapes who you are.
Right.
You know, and I know that, you know, we're afraid to go to therapy, but my goal is for parents to start having their children go to therapy as early as possible, so it now becomes something that's normal for them.
Normalize it.
So when they're going through something, like my girls, like I'm always checking in on their feelings, and they'll say, Mommy, we want to go to Dr. Feelings because, you know, I'm feeling something and I don't know why. And Dr. Feelings is an expert, and Dr. Feelings will give you some sound advice.
I love that.
Or Dr. Feelings will listen to you. Dr. Feelings is a third party. They're not biased. They don't know the situation. They don't have an agenda.
Right.
So they're going to be as honest as they can to be with you from a person who doesn't know the situation that you're actually going through,
Right.
In real time.
Right. I think we've come a long way from, decades ago where people wouldn't even think about going to therapy to now where a lot of people are going to therapy. And especially with COVID, I mean, that's a whole nother subject matter, but with COVID and all the isolating and the quarantining, there were a lot of people that felt like they needed to get help because of that. That was a lot that we all went through in 2020 and still going through it. But especially the isolation. There were people that lived alone, that weren't leaving the house, weren't socializing, weren't talking to people, and it caused a lot of depression. And so thank goodness that now COVID has actually opened up virtual therapy. I mean, it makes it even easier. We can, like how we're doing this.
Yeah, I know. And
Yep.
and it makes it easier because the access is there. A
Yeah.
lot of times before COVID, therapists were so booked.
Yes.
It was hard to even find a good therapist because they didn't have enough time for the amount of people, millions of people who wanted to, come to see them.
Right.
But now with virtual assistants, which is such a great thing now,
Yeah.
if people feel insecure into going to someone's office, they can still be in their home, in the comfort of their home,
Right.
and still talk to a therapist, just like how we're talking right now.
Exactly.
So we don't really have any excuses not to, check on our feelings.
That's right. You can get on your phone and go in your car if you need to, if you need privacy, because I know privacy can be an issue too if you're in a household full of people. I mean, you can't sit and talk with your family sitting around you, but there are ways to get around it. And I know finances is also something. Therapists aren't cheap. People charge $200-$300 an hour. But I wanted to say, and I actually sent you over some resources of some places that offers free therapy. And also a lot of therapists operate on a sliding scale, depending on what your income is. So people get out there and call around and see, because you might be able to, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find somebody that can work with you if it's
Well,
finance.
I'm happy you said that. I think, insurance companies need to start really taking mental health as serious as, you have diabetes, you have high blood pressure, you have, heart problems, you broke your leg. They need to take mental health, because if your mental is not there, nothing else is going to operate smoothly.
Exactly.
Your mental is the engine in the car.
Yep.
If the engine in the car is not functioning correctly, the car is not going to move correctly.
Exactly.
It might still move,
Yep.
right?
Right.
But it might not move as smoothly. So I think it's really up to insurance companies to make this as important and to cover,
Yes.
just like they cover doctor visits, maybe do co-pays, for, psychotherapists, because it is important to make sure that you're okay.
Exactly.
And I think that's another reason why a lot of people don't go to therapy, because it is expensive.
It is.
Because it's an ongoing thing. It's not like something you go to once or twice a year. Sometimes you might need it for as long as you do need it. So managed care needs to really start really covering mental health issues as seriously as they cover physical health issues.
Yeah.
Because more people will go.
Yeah, and it's gotten better, but we still have a long way to go. So hopefully people can, talk to their congressmen and we can write letters to our insurance companies and advocate. And as social workers, that's also what we do, is we advocate for people, because this is needed. This is needed. You shouldn't have to pay $400 an hour for a therapist, or any doctor for that matter. But
I mean, honestly, who could afford that? Especially right now with inflation and everything is skyrocketing, everything is going up. People need to, go sit down and speak to a therapist. I mean, this pandemic took 2 years out of your life.
Right.
Your world just stopped. Your world just changed. And for a lot of people just going out there and thinking everything is going to go back to normal, maybe for some it is, but there's a lot of people who are suffering from mental health issues right now.
That's right.
And it's not being addressed.
Yeah, especially with COVID, the drug and alcohol use has gone up because people had nothing to do and they were drinking in the house. And so that's another component that, again, another show, but that's another component that just adds on top of problems that people already have, and just which makes therapy even more important for you to go and address that. And cultural competency is also something that I wanted to bring up, because a lot of Black people, I think, feel like, they want to see somebody that can relate to them, that they engage with and connect with. And then back in the past, I think they thought of, therapists as this white man that didn't understand them. And so nowadays that has changed. But you have to feel it out. You have to, it's like, you go to a restaurant and you don't like the food, you may not go back, but it's important to try another restaurant.
Try another one, right?
Yes.
You don't just go to the first restaurant and say, I'm never going to go out to eat again.
Right. You will eventually find somebody that you click with and that you connect with. And I think that's really important. A lot of people may give up after the first try, because that happens. You may not find the right therapist the first time, but you have to keep trying, and you will eventually match up with somebody who's good for you, and you'll know it.
Yeah, you'll know it, because it's like a long lasting relationship that you'll have with your therapist. It's like I said, my goal is for the child to go to this therapist as early as possible, and anytime they're going through issues, be able to go and sit and talk to this therapist. I think that would help with a lot of bullying that's going on in school right now, a lot of violence with young kids that's going on right now, because all of those things stems from mental illness. Something happened to that child to make this child react in such a way. Right. And sometimes we don't know. Parents don't know. Things happen behind our backs that we don't even realize it's going on, and the kid doesn't say anything.
Right. Kids are getting,
and maybe by them going to therapy as early as possible, we can get down to the problem so early where a therapist can maybe shift that child's life into a more positive feeling, where that kid is growing and will be a positive influence to society, versus is so angry and things are bottled up inside, becomes like a nemesis to society.
That's right.
So everyone, I want to say thank you, Judy. I love you so much. I'm so happy that you are here. We talk about this all the time, how therapy matters, mental health matters. I wanted to give you your flowers and
thank you so much.
Let everybody know that you are a psychotherapist. Also, you do so much for the community. So like I said, like, psychotherapists come in all different types of colors, races, religion. You just got to find the right one that fits with you. But I definitely recommend going to therapy as early as possible, so you can have a better understanding of who you are and your feelings and your mental health.
Yes, thank you so much, because it starts with having the conversation and educating people and letting people know that they're not alone and that there's help out there. Thank you.
Yes, and if anyone is suffering from depression or having suicidal thoughts, please don't think that nobody cares. They do care. So please reach out to someone and talk about your feelings, or try to find a therapist that can help you. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. I'm proud of you, sis. And thank you, Miss Foster. I appreciate you. Bye, everybody.